Hello everyone, and welcome to the Tome of Silver, the show where I randomly select a game from my collection, review it, and add it to an ever-growing ranking list. So we've looked at Pokemon Red and Blue, we've examined Pokemon Gold and Silver, now we focus on the Pokemon game that actually matters. I'm joking, but seriously, Pokemon Emerald holds a special place for me. It wasn't just my first Pokemon adventure, it was the game that made me fall in love with the series, and with video games overall, shaping who I am today. I got my first ever video game system for my 5th birthday, the Game Boy Advance, along with Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire Pinball. It was only a week later when my mom took my brother and me to Toys R Us to pick out another game. My favorite color back then was green. It's purple now if I haven't laid that on pretty thick over the years, and seeing how cool Rayquaza looked, I chose Pokemon Emerald. I was already familiar with Pokemon by that point. My brother and I regularly collected the cards and had seen a few episodes of the anime. But getting to sit down with my first mainline title, that sealed my intense love for the franchise for many years to come. I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be hard for me to view this game with anything other than rose-tinted glasses. I'm still going to do my best to review the game objectively and point out its flaws. But if my nostalgia takes over and has me play up certain elements, I apologize. As a bonus, we'll also be looking at Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire as well, since I don't think it could have its own video, and pairing my two earliest gaming experiences together to make a mega video feels right. We're going to be looking at two incredibly important games today, so let's get into it. Equip your running shoes, surf across a crap ton of water, and let's turn the page to Pokemon Emerald and Pinball for the Game Boy Advance. Our adventure unfolds in the Hoenn Region, a captivating archipelago teeming with water, inspired by Japan's Kyushu region. The leap from the Game Boy Color to the Game Boy Advance brought Pokemon stunning new visuals, with highly detailed sprites and a breathtakingly beautiful region. The vibrant colors of the GBA perfectly highlight Generation 3's themes of nature. Lush forests, shimmering waters, arid deserts, and much more, Hoenn stands out as Pokemon's most memorable region, packed with unique and unforgettable locations. I always think of Fortree City, where homes are nestled in the treetops, or Sootopolis City, located inside a hollowed-out volcano filled with rainwater. Each location is distinctive, with no two blending together. The design team really outdid themselves. We're all quite familiar with the opening of Pokemon games by now. Building on Pokemon Crystal, players can choose to play as a boy or a girl, with the other becoming their rival. From there, we are introduced to the iconic trio of starter Pokemon and set out on a journey to collect all 8 gym badges and defeat the Elite Four to become the Pokemon Champion. While the setup remains largely the same as in previous titles, Pokemon Generation 3 offers a much richer and more engaging story. The focus shifts to new villainous teams, Team Magma and Team Aqua, whose plans to awaken legendary Pokemon for their own purposes adds a compelling extra layer. This storyline set a new standard for Pokemon games, establishing a trend of narratives centered around near-world-ending threats, an approach that would define the series from this point forward. While I appreciate the increased emphasis on the story, it's also the largest weakness of Generation 3. The shortcomings in the narrative stem primarily from the character development. I recognize that I might be overanalyzing a game made mainly for children, but since the story now takes center stage, it warrants a critical evaluation just like everything else. And I think the reason I find Gen 3's story so disappointing is because it had some great ideas, but fails to fully realize their potential. To start, our rivals, Brendan and May, are very weak characters, especially following Silver from Generation 2. Brendan and May mark the beginning of Pokemon's transition to rivals acting more like friends rather than someone to overcome. I never felt the same satisfaction from defeating May as I did from defeating Blue or Silver, because their battles felt more like friendly challenges, diminishing the significance of winning. This change undermines the purpose of a rival and weakens the competitive spirit that makes these encounters meaningful. I would have been more willing to forgive this if Gen 3 stuck the landing with Wally, the game's secondary rival. Wally is a young, sickly boy whom we help catch his first Pokemon. From there, we almost take on a mentor-student dynamic, with Wally looking up to the player and aspiring to embark on a Pokemon adventure of his very own. We start our journey far ahead of him, which makes Wally's character so compelling. This time, we're the obstacles he strives to overcome. We've taken on the roles once played by Blue and Silver, and that has the potential to create a powerful character arc for Wally as we observe his growth and development. Sadly, this idea falls a bit flat, because we don't get to see him much throughout the story. We only fight Wally twice, the first time when he only has a Ralts and we blow his ass out, and the second being the climactic showdown against his best team before the Elite Four. We needed more fights against him in between to genuinely show that he's improving, because as it stands, we basically watch him go from 0 to 100. Had we fit 2 more fights in between, showing him adding more Pokemon and get closer to us in level, it would have made the final battle more impactful, and maybe even make the player feel proud of how far he's come. Another first introduced in Gen 3 is that our trainer actually has a father, Norman. Not only that, but he's also one of the 8 gym leaders we'll eventually need to face. At the time of recording, this remains the only mainline Pokemon game in which the protagonist's father appears. Like Wally, Norman is a cool idea with a lacking execution. We only interact with him like 2 or 3 times throughout the game, so we rarely establish enough of a relationship to make our battle feel meaningful. He leaves as much of an impact as the dads from Gen 1 and 2.
You ruined my life! How could I ruin your life? I wasn't even there.
The last stop on the disappointing character train is Team Aqua and Magma. Their motivations are dumb. Magma wants to create more land to boost human development, while Aqua wants to create more water for Pokemon. Both are so determined to achieve their goals that they're willing to summon a Pokemon of near cataclysmic might to make it happen. Then when everything goes terribly wrong and the world is on the verge of destruction, they just wonder, but how could this happen? It takes Rayquaza shouting at the kids to "Stop fighting!" to fix the mess they made. These guys are idiots and overall downgrades from Team Rocket. However, I do think Team Magma has the best fits of any villain team. I know I've been pretty harsh on the characters, but like I said, it's because the concepts Game Freak has here have tons of potential. But whether due to flaws in the writing or an unfortunate side effect of being part of a game designed for younger kids, they never reach this potential. My critiques stem from a genuine love for the game. When compared to previous generations, this installment story is not significantly better or worse, but it certainly could have been so much more. Pokémon Emerald stays true to the series formula. After getting our starter Pokémon, we immediately ditch our mom to explore the Hoenn Region, catch Pokémon, collect all 8 gym badges, and become the Pokémon League champion. Generation 3 introduces 135 new critters to catch. And as you might expect, since this was my first Pokemon game, Hoenn features my favorite selection of Pokemon. Many of them directly tie into the game's theme of nature, making for some of the coolest designs Pokemon have had. Some personal favorites are Grovyle, Bannet, pre-internet Gardevoir, Cacturne, and Flygon, just to name a few. But I could probably spend the entire video just listing all the ones I love in this gen. Salamence and Rayquaza, and Latias and Claydol. An unfortunate result of the move to the Game Boy Advance is that you cannot transfer any Pokemon from your Game Boy cartridges to Gen 3. This would hurt dedicated players of the originals, who can't carry forward all the Pokemon they've spent hours catching, raising, and growing emotionally attached to. Later games allowed you to catch Pokemon from Johto and Kanto, and transfer them to Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, but it's not the same as bringing over your team from the originals. Not to mention that it requires the player to buy a whole other game and catch these Pokemon all over again. This discouraged many early Pokemon fans from playing these games, and I understand why. Regarding mechanics, there are no new Pokemon types, but several new features have been introduced to shake up the battle system, including abilities and natures. Abilities are passive effects for a Pokemon. For instance, Sceptile's Overgrow boosts its Grass-type moves when its HP is low, while Pokemon like Solrock and Lunatone have Levitate, which completely negates Ground-type attacks against them. These innovations introduce new strategic layers and make each Pokemon a bit more distinct, enhancing the overall gameplay experience. They are fantastic additions that elevate battles. I'm a little more divisive on natures. Every Pokemon is randomly assigned a nature, such as quirky, timid, hasty, etc. Depending on the nature, a Pokemon will receive a 10% boost to one stat and a 10% reduction in another. They make it so two Pokemon won't necessarily be the same, which can be great for those wanting to min-max their Pokemon to make them stronger. However, in casual play, it often feels more like an obstacle than a benefit. Imagine you're searching for a rare Pokemon like Ralts. After some time, you finally find and catch one. As a Psychic type, most of the moves it learns will rely heavily on its special attack stat. But if unlucky, you may have just caught a Ralts with an Adamant nature, which reduces its special attack and boosts its attack, an entirely less effective setup. Suddenly you're left with a Pokemon that's objectively weaker than it could be, forcing you to either spend more time searching for a better one, or accept a less optimal team. Ultimately, I catch and use whichever Pokemon I find, regardless of nature. Yet it's undeniably frustrating to know that your Pokemon's stats are objectively less ideal simply due to a random assignment. It's a system that can be both a boon for dedicated players and a genuine annoyance for casual trainers alike. Generation 3 is notable for introducing double battles, where both trainers fight simultaneously with two Pokemon at once. I love this inclusion. Double battles are my personal favorite kind of Pokemon battle, because they add a strategic layer that challenges players to think more carefully about their actions, considering both opponents' types. This format also allows for the creation of synergistic pairs. For instance, the move Earthquake hits all other Pokemon on the field, including the user's partner. However, Pokemon with Levitate or are flying types are immune, enabling you to launch a powerful attack against both opponents without harming your partner. I love that stuff. There's a reason why double battles have remained a core part of Pokemon, while others like triple battles and rotation battles were later dropped. The journey through Generation 3 is truly captivating, offering a wealth of additional content that ensures each playthrough feels unique to each player. You'll eventually gain the move Secret Power, which allows you to transform tall bushes or rock indentations into your own secret base, an exclusive spot you can personalize to reflect your style. Each location features a distinct layout and space, inviting you to explore across the Hoenn region in search of that perfect spot. With a link cable, you can even visit friends' bases and share your creations. While these bases may not offer a vast array of activities, there's an undeniable thrill in showcasing your hideout and demonstrating your creativity. If you want to break from battles, you can try the new Pokemon contests, and oh my god are these fantastic! In contests, your Pokemon's moves have unique abilities and personality attributes, and you'll need to think carefully to earn the most hearts by impressing the crowd. This mode is so detailed that you could spend a whole game's worth of hours just raising Pokemon specifically for contests, creating a combination of moves you might never see on that Pokemon otherwise. Contests are addictive and add a whole new reason to catch and raise certain Pokemon, whether it's a fun distraction during your journey, or the next mountain to climb after defeating the Elite Four. And how can we discuss all these additional features without highlighting the most impressive of them all? In Ruby and Sapphire, once you complete the main story, you unlock the Battle Tower, a challenging series of battles where your skill is tested and you can win valuable prizes. While it is a solid extra mode, it may not captivate players for long. However, Pokémon Emerald elevates the experience by offering not just the Battle Tower, but the entire Battle Frontier, an expansive island with 7 diverse battle facilities, each with its own unique gimmick to test the player's abilities. For example, the Battle Factory challenges you to battle using only rental Pokémon chosen from a limited pool, while the Battle Pyramid tests your endurance as you ascend each level in darkness, managing limited resources to keep your Pokémon's strength up. These features create a dynamic, engaging challenge that truly rewards dedication and skill. Playing through each facility not only awards the player points to purchase rare items, but each also features a Frontier Brain, the Frontier's equivalent of a gym leader. You even earn a badge for defeating them. It's like unlocking an entirely new game after reaching the credits. The Battle Frontier is the best post-game content any Pokémon game has ever offered, and while others have come close, it still hasn't been surpassed after over 20 years. Then you add the Trick House, searching for legendary Pokémon, solving the secret of the 3 Reggies, searching for the mythical Mirage Island, the Pokémon Safari, and good lord, there is just so much to do in this game! The team went above and beyond to ensure there is always something for the player to engage with, providing an experience that can last hundreds of hours if you want to. It's simply incredible. It's all added on top of Pokémon's natural replayability. Even for this playthrough, I used 3 Pokémon I've never had on my main team before: Swablu, Corphish, and a Skitty. I was surprised how much I ended up liking Skitty. They could take a hit like a champ, and when the conditions were met to use Attract, it stunned my opponent and prevented them from attacking more than Confusion or Paralysis ever did.
Come over here and kiss me on my hot mouth. I'm feeling romantical.
Alright, it's time to address the elephant in the room. Gen 3 is often accused of having too much water. It even became a meme for the longest time. The second half of the game indeed involves the player exploring a lot on the high seas, and personally, I enjoy it as a new method of exploration that wasn't used much in previous games. We also have the addition of the hidden machine Dive. Although I wish this was something your Pokémon could just do while surfing, instead of needing another HM, diving below the sea to find Pokémon, caverns, and ways to reach otherwise inaccessible places all enhance the feeling of this vast world filled with secrets to discover. Honestly, the biggest issue with surfing is the random encounters. Water functions like caves, where each tile can trigger a wild Pokémon encounter, which can be quite annoying, especially if you become a bit lost and aren't sure of where to go. You'll get tired of seeing Tentacool and Wingull quickly, trust me. I agree this is an issue, and it could have been fixed if wild encounters on water worked like routes or dive spots, where wild Pokémon only appear on specific tiles. For example, the dark patches where you dive could also indicate where you can encounter wild Pokémon. That would make exploring the water less boring and tedious, cutting down the complaints for what is otherwise a fun way to travel. Another common complaint is the music. Not because it's bad, but because it lacks variety, with nearly every track being made of trumpets, trumpets, and more trumpets. First of all, they're not trumpets, they're French horns. Second, I love them. They're used in such a way that every step of the player's journey feels grand and important, whether they be traveling or battling. And when it's time to go up against a gym leader or the Elite Four, you can feel the significance of the battle the moment it starts. One common issue people share, which I also agree with, is the same problem that Pokemon has had since the beginning: HMs. Yes, they're still around, and now there are even more. I've already expressed my confusion over why they can't just make Waterfall and Dive part of what surfing Pokemon can already do. They clutter up your team with moves you don't want to give your Pokemon. Victory Road even requires using 5 HMs to get through. I hate them, they're terrible. Get rid of them, please. Pokémon Emerald has issues. That fact is undeniable. but when placed beside its gorgeous world, fantastic Pokemon designs, and the sheer amount of fun content available for the player, the bad aspects of the game feel so minor by comparison. If the story were a bit better, I would describe Pokémon Emerald as perfect, but what we have is still pretty damn close. So that's everything for Emerald. But how about we take a step further back and look at my first ever video game, Pokémon Pinball, Ruby and Sapphire. At face value, Pokémon Pinball, Ruby and Sapphire is just another pinball game with Pokémon themes. The player can select between two tables, the Ruby table and the Sapphire table. Both share the same mechanics, but feature different layouts. What might be an easy shot on one table could be more difficult on the other, and vice versa. Each table also features different Pokémon and bonus minigames. From there, you hit bumpers, shoot through loops, and carefully time your flippers to score as many points as possible without letting the ball fall to the bottom. What sets Pokémon Pinball apart is that the player has objectives beyond merely achieving a high score. The game incorporates Pokémon catching mechanics from the main series and combines them with the classic pinball experience. By shooting the ball into the catch zone when it flashes, or meeting specific conditions to hatch a Pokémon egg, players can catch Pokémon by hitting the bumpers or the Pokémon itself. Once caught, players can evolve their Pokémon after fulfilling certain requirements. All caught and evolved Pokémon are added to the Pokédex at the end of a game. The objective is to catch them all, and complete the Pokédex. Having a proper goal adds great replay value, and serves as a strong incentive for players to go another round and add more to the Pokédex. It's a better motivator than just getting a high score. Admittedly, I also got a kick out of trying to guess which Pokémon was in the black silhouette during the catch phase. There are over 200 Pokémon to catch, so this will keep players busy for a while, though it also makes 100%ing the game a chore for completionists. This is especially true since which Pokémon appears is mostly random, and ultimately, pinball does have a significant element of chance, which can interfere with your attempts to catch or evolve a Pokémon. It doesn't help that Pokémon you've already caught remain in the pool, so the more Pokémon you catch, the harder and rarer it becomes to find the ones you're missing. The most challenging are the Stage 3 Pokémon. Only first stage Pokémon appear during Catch 'em mode, and then you'll need to trigger and succeed in evolution twice. If you get a game over, you'll need to hope you encounter that first stage Pokémon again on another attempt and start the process anew. That can definitely sting. What might help make catching Pokémon easier is the option for players to choose the ball's speed, with settings for normal and slow. More often than not, I found that slow threw me off because I'm more used to the ball moving faster, but it's nevertheless a welcome addition that could assist some players who are struggling or simply want to make catching Pokémon easier. The visuals are excellent, showcasing the high-quality sprite work introduced in Generation 3. The boards are vibrant and colorful, and I was impressed to see full-body sprites of every catchable Pokémon, complete with animations no less. All the music and sound effects are recycled from Ruby and Sapphire, and they work well enough. I enjoyed my time with Pokémon Pinball. Having two tables to switch between was a nice way to shake things up when I was getting bored of a specific table. The bonus stages in between offered fun challenges to test the player's accuracy, and I appreciate that you can skip them if you don't want to play the bonus game. Although, I found Kyogre's bonus stage needlessly frustrating. Between its ice attack, whirlpools grabbing your ball for several seconds, and Kyogre diving underwater so you can't hit it until it briefly resurfaces, this one was a tough challenge. There's a counter at the bottom of the screen that shows how many Pokémon you've caught during a run, and I couldn't believe the number was in the triple digits. I barely made it to double digits, let alone triple digits. Though, to be fair, I'm hardly a pinball master. I am to pinball what Taylor Swift is to pinball. I actually enjoyed this game so much that I kept playing on my own after I had all the footage I needed for this video. What can I say, filling out that Pokédex is addictive. I doubt I'll ever want to try for 100%. That sounds like an exercise in patience I'd never be able to manage, but consistently having new Pokemon to catch gives me something to aim for each time I decide to pop in the cartridge for a bit of pinball fun. Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald still remain my favorite Pokemon games all these years later. It continued to innovate this series' mechanics by introducing features that will remain an integral part of Pokemon's identity for years to come. The amount of stuff to do, see, and explore is massive, which does a lot to make each player's Pokemon journey feel like their own. This is where my Pokemon journey began, and it left an impression on me that just can't be beat. Meanwhile, Pokemon Pinball is both an addictive and unique spin on the pinball formula, incorporating Pokemon's mechanics to create something only it can provide. It can be a pain to 100% for those who enjoy that, but it also keeps players coming back for more each time. Pokemon Pinball will unsurprisingly rank lower between today's two games, taking the number 37 spot, beating out our other pinball title, Sonic Pinball Party. But the goal of catching them all gives Pokemon a proper objective, which makes me want to play it more often than I would otherwise. As for Pokemon Emerald, do you know what the best part of this channel's ranking list being a personal ranking list is? It means I can absolutely let my bias decide where it goes, because after 3 years of reigning, Tales of Vesperia will finally surrender the crown to Pokemon Emerald, as it claims the number 1 spot in our ranking. Will it be able to pass Vesperia's 3-year streak in first place? We'll have to wait and find out. And that's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button to support the channel. What's your favorite Pokemon from Generation 3? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to see which Pokemon stood out to everyone. Don't forget to stick to the end of the video to see which game or wheel will select next. In the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and may we see each other again when we turn to the next chapter in the Tome of Silver.